So smooth, keeps the workflow tight. Efficiency and value, I see every single night. Risk profiles, they got 'em, man, it's no joke. North America's the stage and they never choke. Metrics on point, updated without fail. Chameleon carriers, they're on the trail. Don't play with unsafe companies, don't be that guy. eCarrierChecks, keeping it safe under the sky. 40 plus filters with the search that can drive carrier information in the FMCSA archive. Find your carrier with precision and needs. Location, equipment feeds. They got the keys. FTL shipper leads. They're right there for you. Real-time authorities, what they do. Crazy, breezy, ultimates. The dashboards away. Freedom from low boards. They got it every day. eCarrierChecks, the architect leading the way.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for being on. Jared and Nate over at the eCarrierCheck Show. It's Friday. We're wrapping up the week.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I've enjoyed this week. I feel like I've been drinking out of a fire hose, man. How about you? How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been good. You know, we made it to Friday, but we're here.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were doing some of those cold calls this week.
Yep.
And, you know, we did cold calls Wednesday. If you haven't watched that, check out that video. It was pretty entertaining. But we actually, I had a couple of those guys follow up some of them.
Yep.
Literally, they're doing quotes, they're doing some stuff like that. So, you know, today, obviously, we're talking about follow-up and those things. But those of you watching, you know, let us know where you're watching from. We always like to see where you're at. We drew a name out of the hat last week. We'll do it again. So hit us up and let us know where you're from, and we'll definitely send out some more swag. So tell me, you know, you, Nate, obviously answer a majority of the phone calls. You've had a lot of calls. What percentage of your calls are around sales?
Oh, goodness. 99%. Yeah. 99%, man. It's that's just, you know, with the economy and the way things are today.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's just trying to find more customers, relationships. So it's literally been almost every phone call.
It's wild, isn't it? Like, I know we do a lot of sales stuff on this show,
right?
But everyone's in the same boat. We all need a client. We all need some revenue, because guess what? Revenue pays the bills.
Exactly. Yeah.
We all got a mortgage or rent or something, right? We got somewhere to put our head down.
Exactly.
Or hopefully we do. Anyway, you know what I mean? So today we're talking about, you know, really the aspect after the cold call. You know, we do a lot of cold calls, but what happens after? What do you do after? And we're not making these calls today. We're just literally going to be giving you some ideas, some thoughts of what we've seen works, what doesn't. And I want to share some statistics, you know, because I think that's really important as we jump into, you know, what does this look like? Yeah. So I found some interesting studies. I want to read this from my phone here. It right now it says that, and this was just done, right? The money is in the follow-up. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, you hit it on the head.
Yep.
So they just did this study. This would have been earlier this year. And right now it takes an average of 8 attempts to reach a lead. Right?
Right.
So when I used to, you know, be in sales more and more, right? I mean, you know, at that particular point, I think the study was like it's between 4 and 6 touches, right?
Yep.
And now it's 8. I'm telling you, the sales is getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah, and to add to that, I believe that, because I mean, when we were making those calls, or you were making those calls on Wednesday, some of those shippers had those crazy, like, press this for whatever, right? Press 1 for marketing, press 2 for sales, right? So yeah, it's getting a lot harder to get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
So I see why that's going on.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the next one, and we talk about this a lot. Is, you know, do you leave a voicemail or not? Right.
Yeah.
So here's the next one. 11% of voicemails get a response on the first call. Okay. 22% on the second call, and 33% on the third call. You get a response.
Right.
So, you know, sometimes I think it's all about patience. You know, it's all about, okay, I need to work this lead. I cannot be the guy that just calls them constantly. You know, how do I add some more value.
Right.
And I thought one of the things that I thought was probably one of the more interesting stats that we found as we were looking into this in some of this new data, right, is that email follow-ups within 5 minutes of a cold call increase open rates by over 50%.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah. So in my mind, if you're making a call, right,
Have that follow up.
if you got an email, make a quick call. Even if you leave a voicemail, you're going to increase those numbers.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, boy, I tell you what, sales is tough,
Yes.
but these numbers are telling you some crazy stuff. Here's one that really is interesting. How, this is the percentage of people that make the first call, right, versus the percentage of people that make the second one. 48% of people do not make a follow-up call, and 44% do not make a second follow-up call, right? So you just cut it in half. If you want to, make some money, guess what? Don't take this personal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just adjusting and becoming better at communication.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And I think, especially when you get those sales or those phone calls, or you're trying to make have your pitch or whatever you want to call it. When you get shut down right away, sometimes people find it hard to have that follow up. Hey, good morning, Jeff. Even if let's say if the phone or the sales call didn't go the way you expected, maybe still reach out to them.
Yeah.
Hey, I understand maybe we're not a good fit for you right now. Let's stay in touch, right?
Yeah. Something.
Send some rates, or not rates, but send some stats, about their company or what they're dealing with, things like that. So I think it's a lost art with that follow up. Even if it's a good call or bad call, I think it should be done.
Absolutely. I think you don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
The other last stat here, and then we'll move into some ideas on how to break this percentage, right?
Yes.
Is that only 2% of sales are made on the first call, right? And I think that number just blows my mind. Then I've been in the 2% club on our show. I've been able to make a sale right on one of our YouTube lives where we do cold calls. But to give you that quick understanding, holy buckets,
right.
you got a ways to go. Right.
For sure.
So, the question is how do you follow up? What do you do? Where do you go with it?
What's it look like?
Right. How do you provide value? So we got some ideas for you. I followed up with people for a year. A year later, I've earned a shot at their business. Honestly, you know what? That's so funny, George. It's the same exact. I've had the exact same thing. there's a company that I followed up with, and it would have been when I was a freight broker. I was heavy into it. It was a roofing company that I always wanted, and I kept kind of just calling, or I'd send emails, or I'd send industry news to them. Right, we're going to talk about some of this stuff, and I just kept doing it year after year. And about once a month, I'd shoot the guy an email, and I'd shoot him a voicemail because he'd just ignore my calls. I think he knew that I was a 308 number, right?
Yeah.
And eventually he kind of gave in and said, "Okay, what do you do exactly?"
Yeah.
This is exactly what this guy said. He goes, "What do you do?" And so I finally got this guy on the phone, and we had a 30-minute conversation.
It's so true. I mean, and any kind of sales. So your type of sales and the type of sales that I was in before, prior to being here, I was working with kids with mental health, right? Trying to sell a service that we can help you find the community needs that a family would need, right? So every time I would call a parent, they're like, we don't need this, right? Well, they didn't really understand the value of what we were bringing to the table.
Right.
It took me, anywhere from 2 to 10 calls to have this family on board. And I had 2 months to get this done.
Yeah.
And I had a broker reach out to me last week saying, "Hey, I'm an agent for this company. They gave me 3 months to build relationships or to have some shippers under my belt."
Yeah.
And, that person didn't get that, unfortunately, but I felt where that person was coming from.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the follow-up calls on that person's end was going. I hope, that person was doing that, but maybe not. But I can see where maybe if there were some follow-up calls that maybe that person could have landed a couple customers. We don't know, but I thought it was interesting.
That is interesting. Absolutely. So, I think it's definitely all about, the questions he asks, right? Using those open-ended questions.
Right.
And I think it's important that you use those open-ended questions in your voicemails.
Yes.
even though they're not there, I always look at a voicemail as, how do you imagine yourself just having a conversation? And why not ask a couple questions on a voicemail?
Right.
Make it more unique. Hey, this is Jared over at eCarrierCheck. Call me back. Here's my number.
Right.
That ain't going to do any good.
Yeah.
How about, hey, this is Jared over at eCarrierCheck. And hey, the reason for the call is I'd like to ask you, what are 3 things that you're trying to accomplish over this quarter that may be something related to your supply chain that I could help with?
Right. Very personalized.
And you just leave it at that.
Right.
George says, honestly, the personal visit is the most powerful follow-up.
I love that too. Yeah.
I have got to tell you a story.
Yeah.
I've got this guy down in Tennessee, and George, you just hit it on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Holy buckets. If you want to break a trend right now, get out of your friggin' house.
Yeah.
So I got this guy, wonderful guy. I don't know if he's watching today. If he watches later, this is how he found me, was through YouTube. We have a wonderful YouTube relationship. I'm a big fan of this cat. But he's a diesel mechanic. He's going to school to be a freight broker. They have a community college there. He also was in the military. I love that. I'm a big believer in supporting anything that I can do for this guy. And so I've taken him on and said, hey, I want to be your mentor. I want to help you get to what your goals are. Right. And so he and I were talking, and I said, well, what are you learning in your brokerage class? And it's kind of typical book stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's some terminology.
Mm-hmm.
It's strategic concepts. Hey, Robert, what's going on?
Good morning.
What up, man? It's good to see you guys. Appreciate you being on. But it's like strategic stuff for, how do supply chains work? The spoken wheel and all these different kind of concepts of logistics. And there's nothing wrong with learning those strategies. I think it'll build on top of what you have to learn from a day-to-day freight broker, right? Mm-hmm. It's also nice to understand why shippers do what they do. So I think it's giving them a nice depth of training that maybe some other brokers, could be benefit. Right. And I told him, I said, you've got to get out and go find some shippers and ask them real world questions. And we just talked about this, open-ended questions. Yeah. So I gave him 5 questions. And I said, I want you to put on a polo and some jeans and maybe trim up your beard, because he's a diesel mechanic. A wonderful kid. He just got a lot of grease going on. Yeah. and he's walked into 4 shippers. 2 of them love this guy and are just telling him anything and everything. Now, they don't have their guard up. He's not walking in asking for their business. What he's doing is walking in saying, I'm looking for help. I need to understand, why in my book is it saying this? Right. What do you do about this? And these people are just opening up and saying, well, yeah, this is what we do. This is how our relationships work with freight brokers. This is how my relationships with the carriers. Yeah. And I think it's really important that I played the new card. I played the new card for probably 10 years as a freight broker. Mm-hmm. And when I was calling shippers, hey, you know what, I'm fairly new. I'd like to just understand why you're, what drives that decision, and why are you shipping out your freight like this?
Yeah, it's very specific, and it's about them.
Exactly.
I love that.
So he's walked into several different, I told him he needs to get 5 of these shippers under his belt that are willing to mentor him. He had a list of people that he's gathered, and he's just walking in and just humble card, fill my cup.
Yeah. Honestly, for those of you that don't know what open-ended questions are, Google it, look it up, read it top to bottom. It truly has helped me ask better questions. And, something that Jared mentioned this morning is, as you start asking those open-ended questions, you'll start hearing more about their company too as well. Absolutely. So yeah, try it on your kids. Yeah. For those of you who are married or have children, you don't have to be married, I guess, to have kids, but I try it on your kids. And I'll give you an example. If I ask, my kids, hey, how was your day? Good. I'm going to get the same thing over and over. Yeah. But if I ask them, hey, tell me what was your favorite part of your day today? Right? They're gonna open up a little bit. And if I keep that concept going, right, and I active listen, which we're going to talk about that here in a second, is if I hear something in that story, follow it back up with another question, right? Tell me more. Yes. Don't listen to respond. You need to listen to understand. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And that same thing goes with when you're talking to shippers,
is that you need to actively listen.
Yeah.
And you can actively listen in other ways other than just your ears. And I'll give you some examples.
Yeah, please do.
Let's just say, for instance, that I'm going after a company. Take the time to read their website and actively listen. What are they saying in their mission statement? What are they saying in this? Something that I'm reading right now is the shareholders' notes of Jeff Bezos since he started the company. And it's really, truly the wildest thing I've read. This guy was truly a brilliant guy. But if I listen to those shareholder notes, I have a better way of talking to those people because I can talk their talk, right? I can mention things that are important to them, operational efficiencies and all these things, you know what I mean?
Right.
So when I'm cold calling in, now I sound more like them.
Exactly.
When I'm leaving those voicemails, hey, what are 3 components that you're doing in order to get to those operational efficiencies? Because if Bezos is saying it in his shareholders, Bezos is saying it through the company.
Yeah.
Right? Those memos, those notes, those guidance things. Hey, here, we're trying to do this and accomplish this in the next 3 months.
Right. Most definitely. And then as you're sitting there having that conversation, we had this talk again this morning, how sometimes I like to almost have that squirrel moment, right? So it's important to reflect back what they said to you, kind of repeat what they said.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's good to repeat what they said. It helps you be engaged.
It does help repeat what you say. I think it's really interesting. Yesterday I had the opportunity to be on a call with a guy, and it was in person. George talks about being in person. This was an in-person call.
Yep.
And we talked about, some of their current relationships. And while the main decision maker was talking to my buddy, he was asking questions about certain things. And my other buddy, who was from the same company, came up and he was talking about, when he asked a question, he was telling me in my ear, why is he asking that question? Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, does this work with this specific type of equipment? Mm-hmm. And then he's whispering in my ear, well, he just bought some of that equipment. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, boy, the reflection point, and this is why we say, record your calls.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, it's one of those things I think it's really important to just record them for yourself, listen to them a couple different times, and reflect.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll help you stay on point. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we get lost. We got things going on in our heads.
Yeah.
There's stress, whatever it may be. So whatever you can do to help you remember that conversation, I think you should do it.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm huge on that. Reflect what they're saying. That way they understand that you are engaged. You know what they're talking about, and you understand their issues, what they're going through.
Yeah.
That's the point of the call. How can I help you? And not, hey, how can you help me? Mm-hmm. That's what shippers want to hear.
Yeah.
One of these days we'll have to get a shipper on, just have this conversation. I think it'd be very entertaining.
I definitely think.
That's a good question. Yeah.
I'll hit on Alejandro's thing here, but I consume a lot of content.
Yeah.
One direction or the other, books or podcasts or audible driven white papers.
Yeah.
And Harvard just came out with a study, and I think this is really interesting to talk about is, how present are you? Right? Are you still here? Yeah. And the question comes into is most people in 3 minutes of getting into a meeting are already thinking about something else. Right? Mm-hmm. So how present are you even when you're making a call?
Yeah.
And what's so funny is I used to be fairly addicted to my phone. I think I'm maybe highly addicted to my phone instead of fairly. But I used to make cold calls. This is when I was a freight broker, and I'd forget who the hell I was calling. Mm-hmm. And I'd be on hold. I'm like, well, fuck, who the hell am I calling right now? I don't even know what's going on. Hey, and I just roll with it. You forget I wasn't being present.
Yeah. You're probably thinking about what you're about to have for lunch.
Right.
50%
of people, the question is, are you still here?
So the question of the day is, how did you help yourself stay more present in these type of conversations?
Yeah. Put this down.
Okay.
I'm also a believer in when you're making calls, put your laptop down.
Okay.
Right here. I've got notes on who I'm calling, and I'm right here. I do that exact same thing when I get home. My phone goes onto the counter, and I'm right there.
Yeah.
I think being more present while you're doing those calls allows you to be reflective later,
Right.
to be able to go into those things. You've got to be present in everything that you do,
Right.
because that's all we have, right? Your mind wanders. It doesn't take much,
Right.
especially for me. Good God. You know, I probably just created a company and burned it down in 4 minutes, just in the last 4 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So your mind wanders. Everybody's minds wander.
Right.
You know, Alejandro asked, what apps or programs do you recommend to record calls? You know, personally, I'm cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Man, am I cheap. I use my cell phone, and I just put right here, and I push record, and I reflect on some of those, and maybe delete them after the week,
Right.
so that you're not bumping that up. There are some apps out there that you can record for specifically phone things. I can't say that I can recommend one or the other. I'm just cheap, so I use what I got.
I personally, because we talked to a lot of Alejandro, great question, because we talked to a lot of freight brokers that work from home and just have this. Yeah, smart, save money. But if you have an iPad or something that can record anything, set that baby up, take your phone, kind of do that. Because I get it. If I was at brokering from home, I'd probably just have this too.
Yeah.
How am I going to record myself?
Yeah.
So there's other ways.
Everyone's got a laptop. There's always that there's a recording thing on there where you can just push record and listen to yourself at least.
Yeah. Or get Zoom or something. And,
you can always have that going on as well. So, but just don't forget to go back and do that. So
a couple of things too. What are some good methods of following up? We talked, obviously you can make a phone call. We talked about emailing, maybe send some mail, maybe a postcard or something.
Yeah.
There's a couple of ways you can do that. One thing that did bring to my attention from a user was, I don't want to be over aggressive with calling. You have to have some patience between calls. But when you were brokering and you had a sales call, how long were you waiting? Let's say you had that follow-up call. How long did you wait for that third call?
Wonderful question.
Was it a week, 2 weeks?
This is such a great question, because, too frequent risks annoyance, but too sporadic loses momentum.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And that doesn't answer your question. So I'm going to get down into the deeper, but there's a weird line in what I used to call it professional persistence. Okay. And, there's nothing worse than, I don't know if George is still on. Is he the guy that, George did. There's nothing worse than doing following up with somebody for years and find out that they're the wrong person. I've done it. There's nothing worse than following up with a person just to find out you're not the right fit, or you're not within their specific. Good morning. What's going on? It's good to have you on. But here's my opinion on it. And I really like that statistic I shared. If you send an email, call, leave a voicemail, you increase your percentage chance, right? Let's just mathematically speaking, that's how I start the ball. Okay. Now, when it comes to, should I call the next day? Should I call that day? Should I call the day up? I probably wouldn't, right? I sent an email. I sent that. Maybe the next day you send a LinkedIn. The problem is LinkedIn starting to get real spammy as well, right? I keep talking about how crowded the highway is. The pipeline is so crowded right now.
Right.
And so what I think is really important, hey, hello, finally I get to catch you guys live. Yeah, no, I'm glad you're on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're on. But I'm a big fan of a 72-hour window. And so if you do Monday, you're doing Wednesday, and then maybe Friday.
Okay.
That may be even almost a little more than you want. So maybe just push it back to 2 times a week.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, and just do 1 a day.
Okay.
Right. So you don't necessarily have to follow up, 2 to 3 times in one day.
Right.
It's going to be sporadically through the week.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that you intentionally or methodically change what you're saying, and add some value.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think some things that can help too is while you're making that very first initial call, I think once you end that call, you should be that person to say, okay, hey, maybe we catch up, this Thursday, right?
Yes.
Have that engagement, make that, be that first person to bring that to the table.
Yeah.
Hey, let's have a follow-up call on Thursday and talk more about some of your challenges.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's probably everything in my mind. I think you've got to. I think this is, in my opinion, everything. Having an action item. This is why I said be intentional.
Yeah.
Be very methodical with the way you're communicating.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got some time Thursday. My calendar's wide open. If there'd be some time that would work for you. If not, maybe at 10 o'clock, I can call you back and hit with a quick value statement.
Right.
George says, I'll try to touch a client 2 to 3 times a week, after a month, once a month, with a check-in, email, or call. Yeah, absolutely. If you're not catching their attention, you're not providing enough value.
Yeah.
Right. And here's some thoughts and ideas on how to provide value. Okay, we got a few thoughts here.
And I like what Ed said here. Typically, morning is best to call. Just get them early.
It's friggin' Ed Burns.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we need Ed on. I friggin' can't get enough of this guy. I wonder how he's doing, by the way. I think Ed got hurt. Maybe got burned or something. Maybe burning up like a slash pile. I'm not sure. I'm glad you're on though, Ed. I'm glad you're okay too. Holy cow, I can't get enough of this guy. Ed Burns is typically I'm not going to disagree. Typically morning is best to call. Can't disagree with you more. I friggin' love morning times. You know what I also like is hitting people around 4 to 5 in the afternoon. They're kind of winding down their day. Maybe they're drinking a beer, maybe they're not. I don't know. It depends on the work environment. And then if you want to be a little bit rogue, call Saturday mornings. And you'd be surprised how many cold calls I've gotten picked up when I call Saturday mornings.
Really?
Yep. So
that's interesting.
It really is. So I love early mornings. Like Ed says, I love 4 o'clock. And then I'm a big fan of Saturday morning, pop on in there. So George says, I offer a Zoom meeting after a week or getting by an email. They'll never take it, but they'll know you're a real person. Honestly, George, I agree with that too. It's one of those things. I think if you add enough value or you hook them on something that they're interested in, they potentially take that meeting. But you've got to be in those, you got to have power statements. Hey, I work with companies to help them reduce, double brokering and billing situations. And I'd like to talk to you about some of the technology that I'm using as a freight broker to help you avoid those 2 things. Would you have time at 10 o'clock on Friday? Boy, that sounds good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Value statement, boom, right? Value statement into an action item.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We got a logistics plan last week where we could go.
Amazing. Yeah.
Well,
thanks for joining, man. I love that. If we can help, let us know. We want to help you be successful.
Yes.
eCarrierCheck, the biggest database of shippers, carriers, brokers. Love this system. Thank you, Alejandro. We appreciate your support. Ed Burns, you are recovered. Thank God. I'd love to have you on still, Ed. You are one of my favorites. I can't get enough of you. I hope you're having a great friggin' Friday. And I hope you get down to Florida here soon and soak those toes in some sandy beaches. So a couple of the thoughts on adding those value statements, right? A few things that I really like. And I'll get into Nick's question here in a sec, but I'm a big fan of using some of these industry insights. Just don't make a call to make a call. Quality always beats out quantity. Yeah, this is all Jeff Bezos talks about. He talks about, hey, we're going to rigidly walk the walk and step by step, but we're going to manage quality. And that was his entire thing for years on end before people were like, you are nuts. This isn't going to work. Right. Everybody buys books at these stores. It was such an interesting way of doing that. And then he's like, I can't Applify. I can't Apple that. I got to be Amazon. And he talked about quality a lot. Right. And Jeff, you hit it on the head. You've got to be intentional. And it's got to be quality. Yeah. I'm such a fan of that. Nick says, hey, do you use things like Calendly workflows or MailChimp journeys to help with the follow-up game? I'm a big fan of automation to a certain extent, okay? Some automation tools just get straight thrown into friggin' junk, and so you've got to watch that. Even if you get a demo request from us, check your friggin' spam folders, folks. You know what I mean? So I don't mind the automation of MailChimp. A lot of that ends up in trash. Calendly, though, big fan of this. It allows people to kind of see when it works best for for them and you. And I'm a big fan of that system, to be honest with you. We talked about going to that earlier this year and haven't, but a big fan of Calendly. real quick before I get into some of these other questions, there's a lot of good comments today.
Yeah.
I love that. I love to let's just talk about some value props that you can throw out there.
Yes.
There are some incredible industry data that's out there that a lot of people don't necessarily follow, such as acceptance rates, fuel rates, rates per mile. Okay, there's all kinds of information that's out there that if you follow the industry, it's important that you know these things, right?
You got to educate yourself.
But sometimes shipping managers only know what's going on with them, the issues that are dealing with them. It's very, maybe not self-centered, but a lot of these guys that are on the ground only have time to deal with what their issues are. So let's educate them. The value that you can add is industry insights, and it's all about just friggin' getting it done. You know what I mean? I'm a big fan of being able to send them things. I'm also a big fan of sending shipping managers things that are, it's one of those things where I'm a big fan of sending, hey, here's some of the technologies I'm using in order to benefit you as a shipper, right? There's some incredible technologies out there. I'm not talking about just eCarrierCheck. Your TMS, we're not a TMS. Your TMS can be a huge play. Hey, we offer visibility. Now, everybody offers visibility, but tell people that, right? Hey, here are 3 things that I believe our technology will help you track. We'll offer industry reporting. We'll offer, time, all these things, and let them know, right? We're trying to help them out. Let's keep going up here and hit some of these things. Let's see. George, after offering to drop off donuts or marketing material, they may not take it, but they'll know you're real. Honestly, I'm a big believer in walking in and introducing yourself. John says you guys are getting after it. It didn't work out for me, fortunately, but may revisit down the road. John, I tell you what, hit us up here in about 15-ish days, 30 days. We have got the most incredible update coming where our sales data will be very similar to like a Zoom info. It's going to be bonkers.
It's unreal.
I've already seen it. We've been test driving it. I wanted a little bit, different of a car color, so we're working through some little bit of things. Incredible data. Come back to us in a little bit and hit up Nate and I. Maybe I can see if I can squeeze them to get you a discount or something.
Arturo loves the system.
Love the systems. Arturo, thanks for being on. We appreciate that. I think we hit it all on the head. We got some value statements in. We talked about open-ended questions, those who, what, when, where, why, things like that. You got to follow up, and it's going to take a lot. 8 times is the statistical analysis. It takes 8 times to pick this thing up and get somewhere. Provide some value, and you can definitely get there.
I think if we all understand, and I'm obviously been guilty, but have patience, but stay consistent. Continue to make those phone calls, but stay patient with those. Remember, it takes a handful of touches until a sales, you land a sale, right? So be patient, but also stay consistent. Pick up the phone. We've been in the position where we have to pick up that phone. Like I said, our sales styles was different back in the day, but either way, at the end of the day, we got to pick up the phone. Follow up. Ask questions. Educate yourself. Ask
good questions and be intentional. It blows my mind that nearly 50% of people don't do another follow-up call. There's the number of the day.
Whether it's anxiety or just confusion,
or you taking it personal. There's some things you just got to work through.
Right, for sure.
So
I agree.
I love it. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Nate, close us out. I know, obviously, eCarrierCheck, we're a sourcing platform. Give us a
sourcing platform. Let us help you, get your brokerage started, right? Let's help you build those relationships. Jared's always saying you might be one relationship away to change your life. It's hard work. It takes time, but we're here to help. We're going to continue to pump content out to help everyone. And, if you ever have any anything we would like us to discuss, email us. Shout us out. We love to do it. So live demos every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Sign up for a recorded demo. Give us a call.
If you do sign up for a demo, check your junk mail.
Right.
Guys, have a great weekend. We love